Hi, class, or classes, I should say, as I'm recording this for both of my Tech for the 21st Century classes. We're going to review Chapter 5 of our text. Let me just bring that up real quick and we'll get started. So I'm using Zoom for this. The section 115 will be able to view this on the Zoom tab as well as the email I send out. I'm recording it to my local computer and I'm going to put it up on YouTube so everyone can see it in both classes, I should say. So here we go. Hopefully. So we're going to look at software and apps. We're going to explain how apps are used in daily computing life and common features of productivity apps. There's many different types of applications that we're going to talk about, of which productivity apps are paramount in that we use those to be productive. Things like Microsoft Office, Adobe Acrobat, and the Adobe suite of applications. Even iLearn can be considered a productivity app. So how we use them in daily life, we're going to describe the purpose of apps, explain the differences between native and web apps. There really are no native web apps anymore, meaning applications that we install only on our hard drives and run from there. Most are web apps that we do install a piece on our computer for and then just launch from usually websites or shortcuts. And we're going to look at some trends in application development. And don't fear, we're not going to develop applications or websites in this class. A lot of my peers do that. I think the work we do and test out is better served for what all of your careers will be than building a web application. So that's my thought process there. So application software are programs that help us perform tasks. It could be a calendar, it could be Word, Excel, PowerPoint, productivity apps. It could be personal interest apps, like maybe an art application or a travel website. We could have communications apps like Zoom we're using now, or maybe iMessage. And tools to maintain our computer or device are called device management, all of which are pretty much shown here. We see a screen for file management. I don't think you can see my. So we see file management here. We see personal interest is travel. Communication is our iMessage screen. Graphics and media is this art and park house window. And productivity is showing a calendar in Google. So local applications are ones that are stored on our hard drive or locally on our phone. Portable applications run from removable storage, such as external hard drive. I'm not going to say from the cloud. When we have an app from the cloud, I want you to reference it as software as a service and not a portable app. Web applications are ones that we need the internet for, much like our Office 365 environment. And mobile apps are ones we get from the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store. The App Store, I should say. So app features, our author brings up some bullets represented on the desktop by an icon or tile. Not necessarily, especially in the Windows world, we can control what icons are on our desktop, but there will be an icon for it from our start button. Can be run by double clicking or tapping, true, regardless of operating system. Open in a window, usually true. Have menus that give us options to access different features of the program. Yes, and this is very important to note that each operating system has a different way it presents menus. So most applications in Windows, the menus will look very similar. They'll all be at the top. They'll have some type of ribbon feature under the main menu item. It's the same feature in Mac and Chrome OS. Have buttons to click or tap to give commands or perform actions. We've seen today in lecture, and it's March 2nd, that the right-click menu has a lot of powerful tools in the Windows operating system. Some are available as both web and mobile app and can synchronize data. You could think of OneDrive and Google Drive as applications that synchronize data pretty readily. Mobile apps use a touch screen to interact with them, and I know we're all familiar with interactive and mobile applications. They use an on-screen keyboard, pretty explanatory, or a Bluetooth connected keyboard. Like any operating system, our mobile devices have applications that are embedded in them, and you can think of one in the world being something like GarageBand. We can organize apps into groups by category, made much easier with iOS 15. Apps are represented by icons on your screen. Yep. And an app store is used to find and download them. Very true there. Just a note, you should still enable authentication even when you're downloading free apps. It's just a way to protect your environment. So we look at a touchscreen. Our input is our finger. And we never talked about our hands really as input devices, but they are for touchscreens. So yeah. So native apps are an app written for a specific operating system and installed on a computer or mobile device. So if we look at my iPhone right now, we have the music app is native. The video app is native. Settings is native. GarageBand is native. And there's many others. Safari is native. On the Windows operating system, things like Edge are native. Mac OS, it's Safari native web browser and other tools you may have. Windows has Draw and Notepad as well. Chrome OS has the Chrome operating system built in, web browser built in. You can take advantage of specific features of the devices in which they are installed. Yeah. And may or may not need an internet connection. More often than not in 2022, everything needs an internet connection. Web apps are ones that are run entirely from the internet. You need a browser or a mobile app to access them. And you can think of all of our mobile applications as web applications. They all start out online. Even though you download a piece, that data is getting stored in the cloud. So that really makes it a web app. And we can picture web apps as part of a bigger solution in that we start with a web server. We may have already talked some about this. That we connect to. That's me. I maintain my lack of hair even though I'm drawing a stick figure. That's pretty cool. So here's my poor attempt at a keyboard. So I type in, say, ilearn.marist.edu, which is a web application. All right, and that goes to a Marist website. From there, the marist.edu piece of our URL says we go to Marist, we have to find iLearn. We find the web server for iLearn and we say, we need this page for this authenticated user. So the web server connects to an application server. which sends the request for a certain person's classes to a database server. And in this database server, we'll see records for students, professors, classes, etc. So anytime you load iLearn, and I'll use my experience, I have 3 classes this semester. I type in my Marish username and password. I click Duo to send me a push, and I get authenticated, and I get to iLearn. And I get to my home page, and it shows my sites that I've favorited. And I click one of those, say, for one of your classes. It goes to the app server with that input. So I need section 115 or 116 of Tech for Management for the Tech for the 21st Century. Sorry, I'm mixing up 2 classes now. That accesses the database server, populates all the content I've already put there, as well as our roster, sends it back to the app server, said, here's the data you need, app server. And the app server goes, hey, web server, fill your framework with this data and pass it back to Al. And that's how web applications work. Pros and cons of mobile applications. Mobile web apps are not as fast and have fewer features than native web apps or desktop apps. I will say that the mobile version of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint are not as powerful as the desktop apps, but they're good enough. Poorly designed apps can turn people away. Anything that's $0 can turn us away because it's going to be annoying. Once we start paying for one of these applications, we're going to get better designed apps. Typing on a small screen can be cumbersome. I agree there. I've started typing on my Apple Watch, and I actually do a pretty good job at it, but it is kind of annoying. Pros, however, we can access them from anywhere at any time. All we need is an internet access point. We don't need a specific device to connect to. I don't know if they're created any quicker than native applications, but development trends are having us develop mobile apps before desktop apps to begin with. And we can have touch and voice optimized interactions. Trends in development, as I said, first, mobile first design. We're programming for smaller screens before bigger screens because we know us as users are more into these, and I'll blur it out, but you can kind of see my iPhone versus the laptop I'm using right now. Once you can build something for a small screen, it's pretty easy to migrate it for a big screen, and we can reuse the tools. M-commerce is simply a type of e-commerce, and we've already talked about e-commerce in class. M-commerce simply means mobile commerce, taking our retail buying sites and moving them to a phone-enabled application. Common uses of productivity apps we've already seen because we've used Word, Excel, and PowerPoint a little bit. So we'll may or may not look at access for database software. Graphic software we're definitely not going to get to, but things like Adobe Illustrator and are tools that we can edit graphics, very high-powered, high memory intensive applications. So productivity suite, we're going to use Office. We have version on our computer, our mobile device, or from our browser. The mobile device versions of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint are weak. I don't even use them myself, but I do use cloud-based Outlook and Microsoft Project and Microsoft Visio quite often. Some are free, but some require you to purchase a license. Anything good, you're going to purchase a license for. Free typically comes with burden. And all these will be able to store via cloud, whether it's iTunes, OneDrive, Google Drive, or whatever. We see some popular productivity suites here. Pages, Number, Keynote come embedded, as does Apple Mail and iCloud. However, most people will still use Microsoft Office or G Suite. I'm sure growing up in your high school environment, you probably used a lot of G Suite. Frankly, it's free or very low cost for entry. And until this year, there was a version of Microsoft Office available for free for nonprofits, but in a greatly reduced price for school districts, it still can't compare with $0. And I don't know many people running open office anymore, especially when you can get access to cloud versions of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint for just signing up for an Outlook account. We've talked about word processing software in our lab, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. They're meant for creating documents or things we want to build awareness to. We've seen labs that create a certificate, or we will see certificates in brochures and things like that. Who uses word processors? Anybody. And we see some uses here. I'm not really going to spend a lot of time with it, but looking for us students, essays, reports, stories, resumes, etc. We've already seen how we can format text by size, color, font. We already seen how we change styles and layouts. We've seen some special effects when we looked at the flyover of the sun and moon in that one PowerPoint lab sim. We can change margins, which we've seen. We can change the orientation of a page, which we do frequently in Excel. And we've already seen the use of some templates. And in a few weeks, you're going to build a resume off a template. Here's just some extra tools that we may have with word processing software, many of which we've already seen. In LabSim, we'll see how to create tables and build references real easy. We're not going to look at mail merges. I've never even worried about mail merge because I use Outlook for all my mail lists. We've already seen how to do hyperlinks, and we'll get into headers and footers, and we already know how to add photos and pictures to our documents. So we're already ahead of the game here. Spreadsheet software we know is the way to interact with numbers, charts, text, data, produce pivot tables, produce charts, things graphical to show how our data looks. We're going to see a bunch of formulas and other means to calculate in Excel when we get to Module 5. We know a spreadsheet is laid out in columns and rows, and where the columns and rows intersect is called a cell. This is a very similar layout to, say, Google Sheets. Key features. I don't think formatting is a key feature of Excel, but changing the type of cell reference is. So maybe changing something from a character-based entity to a number or a dollar value. That is key. Styles are key, especially when we look at charts. We can web enable anything in the Office Suite. And we have tools to analyze data like pivot tables that give us a look of data in dimensions. We'll see more about formulas and functions, and we're not really going to get into references. It's really advanced Excel functions, which really isn't the point of the piece of Excel I want you to get into. If any of us are anything business oriented in our majors, we may want to consider taking the full semester Excel course. It could be very beneficial to your careers. Presentation software we've already seen where we create slideshows, like the one I'm talking off of now. We can see different views. We can insert graphics, video, which we've already seen in our group presentations. We can have different layouts, different themes to personalize the way our presentations look. I really should change the theme of these presentations to make them a little more lively, but the dark text on a white background is perfect for reaching our entire class when we're in the library. And our author gives us some ways to add content into our slides, but we're actually going to do this. We'll learn how to format. We'll learn how to format video, add smart art, which we already did with that 32-point star. We've already seen how we resize graphics. We'll see how to change direction of text. We can actually have text go up and down or downward cascading, which is pretty cool if we want to narrow the scope and the depth of our presentations. We're going to see how to use transitions and animations to add a little character, a little fun to our presentations. We can store these in the cloud or web enable them. But where I want us all to get to with presentation software is knowing our content and using our slides as a frame of reference. We want to get to a point where we don't have to read off the slide, but we can talk with the slide. And that only comes with time and practice. So we'll get there. And as you practice more and more using the slides as a tool rather than the end all, your presentation skills will grow. And here's some other things our author wants us to give. We see the presentation here in a small room on look at 50-inch screen, a bunch of charts. Notice the vibrant white background and the dark blues and the gradients in the charts. Very easy to view in that size space. And again, we always want to go light on dark or dark on light. We never want to go dark, dark, light, light in a presentation because our viewers just won't see it. We always want to make sure any spelling and grammar checks have been done before we present. How we deliver good presentations. It says don't read slides. We're going to get there. Speak loudly and clearly. You see, when I'm in class, I do speak loud and clear. And it's funny, my wife told me yesterday that how can your students hear you because all you do is mumble at home? I said, well, I'm quite loud in class, so I guess I can be double-headed. We use technology to enhance our presentations, animations, video, rich media content. We try to involve the audience, not so much in educational environments, but in the professional world, you want to try to ask open-ended questions and try to elicit some kind of feedback from our audience. It's always great to check our equipment in advance. As we know in the class that is in 302 of the library, we had one of our classes where the projector wouldn't come on and we had to wait for a fellow from the Audio Media Center to come bring us a remote control. If I'd have been class a little earlier, I may have gotten him there before class started. So always important to check our equipment. The biggest hint I can give you on presenting is find eye contact. Find someone that you can reach with your eyes and concentrate on that person. The rest of the audience won't see you're focusing on one set of eyes, but you'll be engaged and less likely to keep looking back at the screens. Again, that comes with confidence in presenting. Database software are a set of tools that allow us to manipulate and access and provide access control over data. As the slide says, add, update, and delete data. We try not to use database software to do that. We try to use web applications to do that. Filter, sort, and retrieve data from a database. We do that through what is bulleted on the bottom through a structured query language or from a query. SQL being the primary language for interacting with programming language to interact with databases. And this is the most easy IT programming coding language to learn. It's built on 28 common English words. And when I teach a data management class in our graduate school, I require them, and I haven't taught it in a few semesters now, I require them to get a book called Teach Yourself SQL in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or something like that. A collection of 10 minutes, sorry. Learn SQL in 10 minutes. 12 chapters, each will take 10 minutes, and you become pretty much an expert at this language. And that looks really good on a resume that you know how to interact with data. Microsoft Access, which we all have access to, and it's a horrible word to use twice in a row, but it is a single person database where only you, the user, can access it at any given time. Enterprise databases, ones that can have many users connect to it, are given to us by providers like Microsoft with SQL Server and Oracle with its Oracle databases, IBM and DB2, run on a server much like we've seen back when I was drawing way back here somewhere. So the part we're talking about now is right here in the database section. So we have tools that enable us to graphically see this data. It's called database management systems or relational database management systems. And database administrators can create databases, restore databases, delete databases, provide access control, who has access to the data, and can provide a query-based structure so that our application server can retrieve data for the web servers. All of which I just spoke of here in slide 3. I want to describe the picture that's illustrated here on the slide. This is from Microsoft Access. This piece right here is showing relationships between two tables or two databases. Relationships are the foundation of relational database management. In that we find two tables and find what they could be alike and join them together. And we see this little line here, and that represents what's called cardinality. It's hard to see here, but this little lock here where my pen is circling, and let me change that to a highlight, to a laser. This right here where my laser is and right under it is called the primary key. So in this particular owner table, this key, owner ID, is providing a field, and a field is a place where data is entered. It's actually called an attribute. An attribute is something that describes the entity. So the entity here is the table name owner. The entity also equates to a person, place, or thing, which is a noun. An adjective describes the noun, so an attribute describes the entity. So owner ID, is a primary key. So there's a couple types of keys that we'll discuss. The first is primary, and the second is foreign. A primary key maintains uniqueness in a table, meaning you can't have the same owner ID for two owners. Every item in there is going to be unique. It helps us have clean data. To form this relationship, a table we're relating to must have a foreign key attached to it that is a primary key of another table. So if we look where my pointer is, we see a 1, we see an infinity sign, and if we scroll down these attributes, we would see a foreign key of owner ID. The primary key in the animal table is called animal ID. This notation here, this cardinality, is what's called crow's foot notation. And this shows the type of relationship between the two tables. The one indicates one, the infinity sign indicates many. So this is a one-to-many relationship. It's perfect for us to program. One-to-one and many-to-many relationships are harder for us to program, and we like to break those down further to try to get to that one-to-many. Graphic software. To manipulate images, video, etc., to do something else with. So we see two types of images here. A bitmap, we lose quality as we enlarge. Vector, we see the quality is maintained. It's two ways we can save an image, say in Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. This vector graphic is what we can use to print production quality, apparel or tchotchkes or plaques or whatever. Key features of all this software: we use a mouse or stylus to draw. We have shape tools. We have tools that can 3D and provide animation. We can resize and crop images. We can edit video. We can add filters. Some common graphic formats we see here. We mostly see bitmaps, JPEGs, GIFs, PNGs. TIFF we usually see when we have a scanned image, and HIEFF, which is Apple's version of JPEG. So that's all I had for our presentation of this week for chapter 5. I want you to answer this question for me. Let me think. Thinking of a good question to ask. There's nothing I really want to ask from our chapter. All right, here goes. What's your overall thoughts on the test out software so far in our semester? We've gone through modules 1 through 3. What are your thoughts? And it's new to a lot of us. Some things we've gone over again. I just want your thoughts. I use it every semester. I use it for my employees, and I would, again, like to know your thoughts on it. So again, tell me what your thoughts are with test out. With that, I wish you a great day, and we'll talk to you in class Friday or whenever you're watching the video. Bye now.